Wrenn used to think that no matter where she went, she'd always be home. Hard to argue otherwise for dryads. So often, home meant a tree they'd never leave. For her, things are a little more complicated. The trees with which she's bonded cannot survive the process for long, and she herself has matters to attend to all over the multiverse. But she remained convinced that no matter where in the multiverse she ended up, she'd never be far from another place to live. Until she arrived on New Phyrexia. In all her days, she could never have imagined a place like this, scoured of all natural life, at once deathly quiet and filled with the artificial chittering of machines. If you asked any dryad to imagine their worst nightmare, they'd speak of a place like this. Wrenn hates it here, and she hates most of all that this is where she's going to die. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you more Magic the Gathering lore. Today we continue the March of the Machine story, leading us into the spoilers for an MTG set that's sure to get every player excited. And that's especially true if you're into the lore. On our last chapter, which you can find linked on your screen or in the description below, we witnessed the return of Elspeth Tirel, forever changed into Archangel Elspeth. Her new divine powers tore through the darkness of New Phyrexia as well as Elesh Norn. But still, a single soul wouldn't be enough to stem the tide. There's still an invasion tree, as well as endless Phyrexians who march through it. That's where we pick up the story in today's video, as the heroes fighting on New Phyrexia are given a new opening. Will their tiny rebellion find success, or more despair? But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and of course share it with your friends. Now let's continue with the March of the Machine story with Chapter 13, Wrenn and 8, written by K. Arsenault Rivera. Wrenn, the dryad who can commune with the trees, had once heard the song of this invasion tree. It was faint. Despite her hearing it across the blind eternities, she could hear its whispers of pain. It was still alive, but just barely, a seedling clinging to a small shred of light as the darkness encroached around it. All living things wanted to grow, but the black oil of New Phyrexia was forcing its way through the tree's spirit. Soon there would be nothing left, and once the spirit was gone, Wrenn could no longer graft to it, and their plan, as brave and foolhardy as it was, would amount to nothing. Wrenn understood all of this, especially now as she lay dying on the cold, pale surface of the Phyrexian stronghold. A completed Nissa had torn her from her previous host, Seven, leaving her pale, frail body discarded, merely a torso left. She could not walk. She had barely the energy to speak, let alone help in the fighting that had broken out around them. She had remembered a bright light, flashes of gold gleaming against red sinew, an angel, then Koth, barking orders at Mirrans, who had found renewed strength. Yet there was no new strength for Wrenn, only hope. There's a heavy burden on Wrenn's shoulders. She's in a place that, to her, shouldn't exist. A place her sisters would describe as a nightmare. She hadn't heard the song of the invasion tree since they arrived. Were they too late? Will she fail in the one task everyone counted on her for? The weight seems to lift, just a little bit, as Wrenn loses the touch of the cold steel beneath her, her body becoming weightless. Chandra, her dear friend, cradled what remained of the dryad and sprinted toward their only sense of victory. The route was covered by a Phyrexian army. The tree's spirits could be dead. Wrenn was already dying, and still, they tried. What they didn't account for, or at least they wanted desperately to forget, was what was hunting them. A completed Nissa. Metallic vines of copper wire sprung the monster into the air, surveying the land, ensuring the hero's attempt would fail. It was her only purpose in her cold life. With that, she impaled any foolish Mirran who stood in her way, launching a flurry of barbs, metal mimics of thorns, raining down upon the rebels. Koth managed to protect Chandra and Wrenn with a slab of metal debris hovered by his magic. Many of their other comrades weren't as lucky, such as the quiet Malira. Her immunity to pheresis was something amazing, a true beacon of hope on this dark plane. While she couldn't be completed, she could still very well die, something Nissa stood to prove with a javelin-like vine piercing the woman's stomach, her breathing ragged, and screams agonizing. But she stays strong. Melira continues to fight, holding the wound tight and encouraging the others to keep moving. Not a moment later, Nissa is back to her main target, lashing a copper vine around the foot of Chandra, whose flames she worried would hurt Wrenn if she cast them. With a violent tug, the pyromancer is pulled back and hung upside down in front of her adversary, her valuable package, the dismembered Wrenn, left thrown in the air. Displaying a sense of unity Elish Norn had decried as missing among the mortal races, a Mirren rebel is there to snatch Wrenn up before she hits the ground. Continuing the journey, again and again, this unity never faltered. As one Mirren was felled by Phyrexians, another would continue onwards to the invasion tree. Her final carrier is an injured Melira. Rasping voice and labored breathing, stabbed through or not, she would bring Wrenn to the tree. Wrenn wonders how she can even move with such an injury, not that any of their will surprised her. Chandra, still lifted by Nissa, was now being strangled with a vine, the planeswalker struggling to breathe. Wrenn sees desperation in her face, along with the unyielding rage in Nissa's. She's coming for them now. Koth does his best to slow her advance, hurling boulders of molten metal at the Phyrexian, only for Nissa to slice them harmlessly in two. But still, every moment of distraction gave Wrenn and Melira more time. Koth built up a wall of steel, cobbled together by crudely forged Phyrexian bodies and Mirren armor. It wasn't perfect, but given the war raging around them, still incredibly impressive. While the barrier did well to slow the Phyrexian army, now teeming in the thousands and dwarfing the few dozen Mirren fighters, Nissa would have no problem crashing through. They needed to hurry. With Melira on the brink of collapse, she lifts the half-body of Wrenn over a small ledge and up to a platform to meet with the invasion tree. They had made it. But it wasn't just the journey that would take time, grafting to the being would too. And it was precious time they did not have. With Wrenn's life beginning to fade, she was unsure if she could complete the process. The elemental fire that burned within her threatened to consume her, all her remaining energy going to subdue the inferno. While Melira could cast a spell to help heal the natural flora composition of Wrenn's body, buying her some time, she could do nothing to help focus that inner fire of hers. That was supposed to be Chandra's job. She spoke to the flames. She could help Wrenn guide them into the invasion tree. No, not the invasion tree. It had a name. She heard it whispered. It would be rude to call him anything else. This was Realmbreaker. She begins to graft to the great tree. As she does, her vision is obscured by black, shadow, and dancing flames. It is painful. Realmbreaker does not want her here. It's rejecting her like a sick animal would be left to the wilds. It hurts both physically and emotionally. Still, Wrenn pushes deeper, trying to find Realmbreaker's soul, a glimpse of its natural being in a sea of black Phyrexian oil. Her inner fire flares. It hungers as equally as the Phyrexian sludge, both all-consuming, with Wrenn right in the middle. The fire burns away at the oil, but at Wrenn as well. It cannot tell the difference, and Wrenn cannot control it. She's dying. Then, a crash, loud enough that Wrenn hears it through the inner workings of Realmbreaker. Then, a light, bright enough to pierce the darkness. The angel, a sword as bright and hot as all of Mirrodin's suns, cuts through Nissa, her eyes and mouth exploding with light. The blow staggers her, dropping Chandra near the tree. Near Wrenn, she only takes a moment to gather her breath. They had talked about this moment before on Dominaria, controlling fire, shaping it, directing it. It's what she had to do now inside Realmbreaker. The voice of her friend is calming. Wrenn felt that with her by her side, she could do anything, even the impossible, even this. With the fire now taking on the ethereal form of Wrenn herself, it goes out and extinguishes the dark roots that surrounded the soul of Realmbreaker. Despite its physical size, the true tree was small, nothing more than a sapling. Its green glow of life dimmed as it struggled in vain against the oil. Wrenn's fire had finally freed it, but there was no time to celebrate. She cast her fire, her soul, bathing over Realmbreaker. Typically, a tree's soul would need to be mature in order for her to graft properly, but it was a rule Wrenn had to break. She could ask for forgiveness later. With a simple thought, the two became one, as her fire gives the sapling energy, rains like sunlight, everything a tree needs to grow strong. But this all happens at a greatly accelerated rate. Wrenn and Realmbreaker are stretched as they expand together. It's painful, so very painful, but at the end, the tree's spirit stands tall and strong, shrugging off its oil, reborn. They had become one, Wrenn and 8, happiness swelling inside the Dryad. This union, however, was far from perfect. Realmbreaker was unstable because of his growth, and the taint that still ripped at his physical form. Wrenn too was weakened. The process had torn her spirit thin, her fire on the brink of consuming her and 8 both. They didn't have long. Wrenn had to do the thing she had always planned on doing. Find Teferi. Find him and bring him here. Her death, and the death of the invasion tree, wouldn't be enough to end this threat forever. It would take a hero for that, and Wrenn knew no better hero than Teferi. Teferi had been lost to them since he spiritually traveled back in time, but the Time Mage had taught her to follow tangles in time, a type of magic she was sensitive to as she could feel spirits across the multiverse. Even here, she knew Teferi was out there, somewhere. She just had to fight through the tangle to find him. And with Realmbreaker, her 8, now a part of her, she had that power. She talked to young 8, encouraging the tree, letting him into her mind to see the truth of her thoughts, of her plan, and 8 agreed. Happily, he grew. He did not know where to go though. He only knew the worlds his former master commanded him to go to. Now they searched in the darkness, punching randomly through reality to find this tangle. Wrenn was able to guide its branches as it grew and connected to more worlds until there. She had found it. A tangle in time. An anomaly in the blind eternities. Teferi. As a portal opens up, Wrenn and Realmbreaker see a world unspoiled by new Phyrexia, the first of which Realmbreaker had ever seen. A blue sky showed over green fields, with people clad in armor but showing no signs of fear. This was it, the place out of reach of Elish Norn, a pocket world removed from time. Teferi's people, Zolfir. She cannot leave to find Teferi. 8 is merely a soul at this point, and without its soul, Realmbreaker will collapse into nothing. Instead, Wrenn projects herself through this portal, her weak physical form left with Realmbreaker as she now becomes a fiery silhouette, an avatar. She grabs the attention of her friend, a battle-hardened wizard who now looks at peace among his people, gathered in a throne room standing by a queen. The queen is understandably upset at this spirit barging in, but Teferi recognizes the figure and greets Wrenn as a friend. A small portal is ripped open. Wrenn hates to be ruining Teferi's happiness, but the matter cannot wait. They need a hero. Teferi, seeing what Wrenn had done, grafting to Realmbreaker, finding Zolfir effortlessly, he believed the multiverse already had its hero, but would come and help if he could. The portal wasn't big enough for the army that had gathered around them in the palace gardens. Aided by Teferi's magic and prior warnings, the people of Zolfir were prepared for war. Teferi was ready to step through alone. Before Wrenn stops him, the multiverse needed an army, not a single mage. Teferi needed to bring everyone. Wrenn knew what this meant. Her and Realmbreaker would need to expand well beyond their limits, encompassing the entire army and shifting Zolfir's reality into New Phyrexia. The two would become one. It would tear her and her new companion apart. Wrenn asks her 8 if he's okay with this, knowing what it meant. Sensing the moment, Realmbreaker agrees. Wrenn says her goodbye to Teferi, who in turn shares his gratitude. Wrenn is at peace. At least she can die with one branch in Zolfir, and not wholly on New Phyrexia. With that, she wills Realmbreaker to grow. As realities merge, the angel who came to their aid begins to waver. Fighting the Grand Praetor was no easy task even for her, her sword beginning to dim. Their makeshift barricade is shattered as Koth's magic finally fails him. The gathered armies of New Phyrexia pour through the gates and freeze, both in confusion and horror. Ahead of them is a portal to a place lush and verdant, cultivated by careful hands and attentive hearts. It is a thing that horrifies them. So too do the warriors who cross over the portal. and the mage who stands at the vanguard. It has been many years since they were called to war, but Zolfir stands ready. And there you guys go, the next chapter in the March of the Machine story. We finally see Teferi get looped back into the story via Wrenn, which just makes a lot of sense. This story has a load of callbacks to previous story that came out around the Innistrad Midnight Hunt time. I think it was called Tangle. It showed how Teferi taught Wrenn the magic to sense these tangles in time, which he of course used in this story to find our lost Teferi, ultimately bringing the Zolfirian army to New Phyrexia, and it was really nice to see us build off of that story. I think the writing here is intentionally vague, and I'm not sure who lived and who didn't. There was a lot of doom and gloom relating to Wrenn and Realmbreaker, but nothing definitive saying that, yeah, they expired. Same goes for the completed Nissa. Wrenn sees Archangel Elspeth basically blow her up with holy fire, but ultimately it's just said that Nissa is staggered and not like destroyed. So for a story that feels like there's a lot of consequences, I'm not too sure which are real and which are still to happen on screen. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you're enjoying the content, please be sure to leave it a like, become a subscriber or a member of the channel, drop a super thanks, and of course, share it with your friends. It all goes a long way in helping us grow this community. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!